Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activity powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Welcome, and this is the 5th of January 2015. If you're looking in the rearview mirror of 2014, a lot of the same things coming into focus this morning. We have S&P futures lower this morning by 10.25 at 2036. We'll get into the technicals with Milton in a little bit here. Um, Crude oil, West Texas Intermediate crude, lower by $2 at 50.70. We're approaching that 40 handle. All eyes on crude this morning. Gold rising at 7.90 by $7.90 to $1,194.10. Silver higher by 24 cents at $16 and a penny. We have the 10-year at 2.091. We had these lows in October down to 1.89 if memory serves me right. Also strength on the US dollar at 91.596, higher by 0.516. The euro going through that 120 handle at that 1.1920 level. So let's jump in and have a quick recap of Friday's trading. Certainly we had volatility in the morning hours, lots of volatility in oil and in the SPX in the mornings. We recovered to more or less flat in the S&P 500. S&P 500 was lower by 0.03%, lower by 0.3% at 2058.20. Dow Jones Industrial Average higher by 0.06% at 17,832.99. The NASDAQ lower by 0.20, 4726.881. So let's jump into what's on the minds of traders this morning and what's going around. A few things coming out of OPEC. The Iran oil minister says crude prices to vary between 60 and 90 in US dollars in coming months, and says OPEC can influence oil market only, quote unquote, only through the level of supply. This is a direct nudge at the Thanksgiving Day announcement from OPEC that they did not cut. Also out of Germany, the CPI at 0.2%, expected was 0.3%. This is the lowest inflation reading from Germany in many months here. So one of the central themes that we've been talking about in coming into 2015, and what we'll do, we'll put up central themes and what traders are discussing as topics every morning here, and that is the euro weakness. We brought this up at 1.1919, breaking through that 120 level. Continued strength on the U.S. dollar, and we can check the U.S. dollar here. Let's take a look at. We'll also bring up the chart on the U.S. dollar briefly, so we can take a look at this. Currently at 91.609. If we take a look at the daily, it has been a whirlwind of a rally in the strength in the U.S. dollar since the low in May of 78.906. If we take a look at a weekly, it's a multi-year high. If we take a look at the 10-year out, and we take a look at the weekly, for example, we are at let's see, the high was 92.63, and this is going back to 2005, folks. So we are absolutely in multi-year highs. We would have to go back to 2005 to see these levels again. That's a central theme here. Will the U.S. Will delineate from the weakness in the Eurozone, in the weakness in Japan? Will the U.S. be able to delineate itself and come out with a relatively strong economic readings? And will it be the pardon the expression, the beacon of strength in a concerning global economy? On oil, we'll take a look at the CL. We'll get into the technicals in a little bit. Again, multi-year lows here. We're at the 50.81. That's also critical discussions that are going around. Should we hit the 40 handle? What's going to be the response among traders, and how will they respond to that? Should we hit that the 40 handle below the 50 mark? Also, Draghi, QE in the coming months, concern about deflation. Folks, we've been discussing this for months now, that it's not really this notion of quote unquote decreased or lower inflation expectations, folks. The reality is deflation. That's the risk. That's the bigger risk. If the target is 2% and we're well below that, and prices are not going higher, there's a risk of deflation. Also, coming back into news, and we've been saying this for weeks now, is this notion of the Grexit, the Greek exit from the euro, not the eurozone, folks, but the euro, the currency. And is there risk of contagion among other countries, the Irish, the Spanish, the Portuguese, the Italians, the if you will, the PIIGS numbers, the pigs from the crisis age. Also, as oil continues its decline, what's the impact on the countries? We've been discussing this. I think we're really going to see this unfold in 2015. Now that 214 is in the books, it's over. But same things are coming into 2015, and we're really going to see, I believe, some action on the part of countries with respect to oil. Also keeping an eye on certainly Russia, Ukraine. Really not much coming out of that. Larger story is oil. Auto sales, we'll report on this in just a few minutes. Chrysler coming out with some numbers. Also at 12:30 this morning, Gallup U.S. consumer spending measures. TDMX trade, IMX. Also, Baltic Dry Index falls 1.3% to 761 points. That's a continued decline in the Baltic Dry Index, folks. If you don't watch the Baltic Dry Index, you should. This is a great indicator of activity, of real activity, almost real-time activity, daily indication of shipping, dry shipping, raw materials, grains, and various other entities on ships. And this is pure supply and demand here, folks. So this is something that you absolutely should keep an eye on. And again, coming into the themes of 2015, we're looking for the FOMC decisions, rates, treasuries. What's the actions of the central bankers? What's the commentary? Lots of conversation also about Japan. It's no longer a lost decade, folks. This is a lost multi-decade. You know, Abenomics, is it working? And really the more nuanced theme in Japan is here in the West. We're a little bit, especially in the U.S., we tend to be a little more insular. But the reality is, in Japan, the weakness in Japan, it has an effect on China, on Singapore, various other nations. Remember, if there's weakness in Japan, will they invest? Japan tends to be a huge investor in China and in other Asian nations. So that's a really big story there, folks, and we're keeping a very close eye on that. Certainly, oil, nat gas weakness. We discussed the Russia-Ukraine, also the Russia-China relationship. We'll see a lot of that in 2015, see how that develops, especially if the Western sanctions against Russia do not are not lessened or not weakened, if you will. Taking a look at the U.S. crude exports with respect to regulations, Obama, new regulations coming out with respect to crude exports, comments on OPEC, non-OPEC countries with respect to oil, certainly macroeconomic, and obviously with the dollar index coming up, the DXY at absolute multi-year highs here, folks. What's the implication for the euros? What's the implication for the ruble? It's going to have an effect, folks. If it's not already, folks, that individuals that we speak with internationally, whether it's in Europe, whether it's in Russia, Asia, folks, currency has an effect on anywhere from countries to large corporations, small corporations, and the regular consumer. It has an absolute effect on how the consumer functions, and that's something that we are keeping a very, very close eye on as we progress here. Folks, just coming in here. Before we get to the overnight markets, we do have the Athens Stock Exchange down 5.3%, below the 80-point mark for the first time since November 2012. Banks are lower by 7.2%. One of the things, as we bring in Milton here, we really want to bring up this notion. We've discussed this several times. Is this notion of the Greek Euro exit? Is this a bluff? First of all, before we get into the technicals, I know that you speak to individuals constantly. What's your feel on the Greek situation? Should the anti-establishment win? Will they make a legitimate push towards the exit from the euro? What's your thought on that?
Of course, their main aspect of what they base their party on is the anti-austerity, anti-euro movement. So if the Syriza party backs out of that whole philosophy of what they're all about, it's going to be insane. It's going to be a disaster in Greece. So I don't think it's a game. I think the initial talk could be a little jawboning here and there, but in the end run, I think if the Syriza party wins, and they do win the majority, if that happens, you could have that exit from the euro, the Greek exit, that everyone was talking about in 2009 and no one is talking about now and no one cares. But that could happen. So we'll see what happens on that aspect. We'll see what happens on the feel of that, if Greece does leave the euro, what is the next step? We had a lot of comments out of Germany this weekend saying that they can handle a Greek exit. They can withstand them leaving the euro. So we will see what happens. We will see if that happens, what happens to the whole euro structure, and then we can decide how that will affect the markets. But as of now, if Greece does go that route, the Syriza party will most definitely end austerity and talk of ending and leaving the euro. That's my feel. That's what I've been hearing when I speak with my people overseas. So that's just a quick feel on that. We can discuss that later on. But let me just jump on some technicals real quickly. We'll look at the ES first. The ES is basically, ever since the end of the end of 2014, we closed on a little of a sour note. We started on a bad note. We're having continuation of the negatives following what's going on in Europe. Oil still getting decimated, down another 3.5% this morning. The euro almost at 9-year lows. The dollar at almost insane highs, and I just sit back and wonder what is really going on. Last time this happened, the markets were trading at 8,000 on the Dow, but right now, I guess the strength is still there. The bull market is still intact. We are right by all-time highs, while oil, the euro, the 10-year, all near all-time lows almost. So it's very awkward. It's very interesting to see what happens. Not all-time, but most recent lows. Technically, we're looking at that 2035 level short-term support on the ES. Resistance at that 2050 level. Right now, we're going to see some volatility come back into the market because everyone who was on vacation or away during the holidays is slowly coming back in to work. We'll see what the reaction is this morning. Europe is down overseas. We're going to watch the futures this morning, which are currently lower by over 8 handles. Fair value is, I believe, is down by 13, 14 handles. So it's going to be a very messy morning. A lot of big names are, weaker this morning. We're going to see the reaction once the market opens at 9:30 a.m. and we can get a better feel on the morning run into the afternoon and to the close. Bulls want a reversal, clearly. They want to see that reversal. They want to see that number back above 2050 on the ES. Will that happen? We'll get a better feel in the afternoon after the morning rush. Afternoon doldrums, we'll get an idea into the close. Who is going to win today's victory? Is it going to be the Bears keeping it lower, or is it going to be the Bulls reversing this market to the highs? The VIX. The VIX is right now in the high-level resistance level. We've been mentioning that 14-16 support. Hit that 14, bounced right off of that 14. We even mentioned the option volume in the VIX. Bounced right after that, excuse me, bounced right off that 14 number. Hit a high, I believe, in the 19s. Now it's back in the 1779. Close on Friday. We're going to keep an eye on those on the VIX. Typically, we have the 14 level support, the 20 resistance. Hit that 20 resistance on Friday. Came all the way back to a 1779 close. We'll see what the reaction is this morning. If it goes back to that 20 number resistance, that is a key level to watch. Before the past few days, it's sold off of that 20 number, so we're going to watch it closely and see what the reaction is going throughout the trading day today. Oil. We've been mentioning oil for weeks and weeks and weeks not to be a hero. Hopefully people have listened because it's been going down every single day since we've been saying those few words. Right now, oil is at 51.08. The low of 50.55 this morning. Is it going to break the 50 number? Many people are out there protecting that level. Could we see that 40s? Possibly. We've been talking to a lot of people who think once that 40 number is hit, you can see a vicious dead cat rally off that number. So we're watching that level. We're watching those numbers. We're keeping a close eye on what oil is doing. Right now, it's trying to bottom, trying to turn here, hit a low of 50.55. Support level at that 50 number, resistance at that 53.60. We're keeping a close eye on all this. Ideally, would we want to see 40s? Technically, yes, because you want to see that flush. We haven't seen that flush yet. You want to see a flush. Then you have that big reversal capitulation bottom. Right now, we're watching it, keeping a close eye. When we see it, when we feel it, we will let everybody know. But as of now, you're having a nice little bounce off the lows. We'll see what happens during the trading day today. Any change, any feel, we will let everybody know. We will update everyone. Gold, what have we been saying about gold? That 1200 number. It seems to be that tractor beam. Broke below it, almost right back at it today. It's trading 1196.20 right now, right by that 1200 number. It's in a tradable range. 1200 to the upside, 1150 to the downside. Once that is broken with volume, you could see a substantial move to either direction. Higher, the 1200 could see that 1250 number broken, and once that 1250 number is broken, the levels are tremendously higher. 1150, same thing with the 1150 support. If that number is broken, next level lower it's a much lower number than where they are. But right now it's in the range, and it's going to stay in that range until things are, continued moving in either direction. Yeah, George?
Milt, we talk about oil. You and I talk to a lot of folks, right? There's a lot of people who have opinions. I'm going to throw it out there. What viable reason out there do we have for oil to come back over 60? Honestly, is there anything out there that's saying, hey, you know what, it really should be at 65? In your opinion, is there anything out there that sticks out like a sore thumb?
Let me ask you this, George, to cut you off. When oil was trading at 100, how come no one was thinking that way at 100? Absolutely. So in all reality, who really knows? Right. Where is oil trading? Why is it trading in 50s? I have no idea. Is it the U.S. dollar? Right. Possibly.
Right.
Is it supply? Maybe. Is it game theory? Could be. But who really knows what is going on with oil? Oil was trading at $100+ consistently.
Right.
For so long, and no one even cared. No one mentioned one thing about supply. What changed in 2 months? That oil went from $100 to $50 a barrel in 2 months. Supply was all of a sudden a flood in the markets in a span of 2 months? Come on. Something clearly is going on. Is it being manipulated? Who knows? Is it this U.S. dollar strength? Like I said, it could be that. Who really knows? If anyone ever tries to tell you what they're doing on gold, or if anyone tries to give you their feel on I'm not gold, I mean oil, they think that oil is going to go back to the 70s, 80s, I'd walk away and be like, okay, because no one really knows. Could it be in the 60s? Who knows? We had some Iran, some leaders in Iran came out and said that they think it's between 60 to 90 in the next 6 months. Are you kidding me? I just sit back and laugh. I don't think people really understand what's really going on in oil. If they're telling you oil should be higher, laugh in their faces because no one really knows. It's a game, in my opinion, right now. And until the blood is on the street, which is currently happening right now, I don't think there's going to be a bottom in oil until we get that vicious volume reverse rally on a capitulation bottom. Could it happen today? Easily. If oil turns up positive on the day today, this could be a capitulation short-term bottom.
Right.
But who really knows? I'm not gonna gamble my money away in it. I hope you guys don't gamble yours. But as of now, don't be a hero. We've been mentioning it since oil was at 70s. Don't be a hero. End of my speech, George. You're up.
All right, thanks, Milt. So let's get back into our presentation here. Let's get into the specifics of overnight markets, as we mentioned in Athens. Certainly, Athens Stock Exchange down 5.3%, below the 800 mark for the first time since November 2012. Banks are lower by negative 7.20%, and that's in Greece. Again, a real concentration of what happens in Europe here. Also, so let's take a look in Asia in overnights here. We have the Nikkei lower by 0.24%. The Hang Seng lower by 0.57%. We have the Shanghai higher by 3.58%. That's a rather impressive volatility in the Shanghai. Not out of sync for the Shanghai index, but certainly rather impressive gains there. Also in Europe, let's take a look here as we look at in Europe. We have the FTSE lower by 1%, and we have the CAC in Paris lower by 1.79%. DAX in Germany lower by 1.55%. In IBEX in Spain, we have lower by 2.04%. So again, rather weak across Europe, and coming into the U.S. this morning. Again, S&P 500 futures lower by 7.75 at 2038.50. Crude oil at $51, even lower by $1.69 this morning. So one of the things that when we watch oil, these are the ETFs, ETNs that we're keeping an eye on, and really we're really watching these producers, large and small, oil-related names, whether it's the Halliburton or Schlumberger, and also really what's the impact of oil on CPI and PPI data. That's something that we're going to, these inflation readings, that's something that we're going to keep an eye on rather closely. Let's get into commodities, energy, and raw material. We have, again, West Texas Intermediate crude at 51.02, gasoline lower by 0.0354 at 1.3980, natural gas higher by 0.079 at 3.083, heating oil lower by 0.0259 at 1.7702. Gold higher by $8.20 at $1,194.40. Silver at 16.010, higher by about 24 cents, just about where we were when we started the show. And we have platinum higher by $2.20 at $1,206 and a penny. I'm sorry, and a 0.1, $1,206.10. We have cocoa higher by $7 at $29.34. One of the things that we're keeping an eye on as well really is the yield environment. And we'll do this before we get into the specific stocks that are making news this morning. If you've been watching the Unusual Activity app, information has been in there for some time, so we're going to mention some of that information coming through. Also, so the 5-year at 1.612, the 10-year at 2.093, and the 30-year at 2.659. So rather impressive bids in especially the 10 and the 30-year. So compared to a year ago or so, seeing some interesting yield curve configurations there as we get into the 10 and the 30-year compared to about a year ago. So that's something that this is the for your records, this is the technical analysis that Milt went through. So let's get into specific stocks that we are seeing news and specific that's being circled around desks this morning. And SALT to sell 8.83 million shares for holders. Stock is currently indicating $1.91. TEAR, we have 25 million mixed security shelf. Again, for those of you who are new to syndicates and secondaries, security shelves, mixed security shelves are anywhere from common shares to preferreds to could be convertibles, fixed income, various other entities out there. So that's something that we're going to keep an eye on as we're preparing for the open in just under a minute here, just a few seconds here. So a few stocks that are making news this morning. CNAT, continued strength and optimism of their Amritsar data. Currently this morning at $11.29. JDSU added to select list at Stifel. That's JDSU. Currently indicating at $13.61. LBIO submits IND application to conduct phase 2 study. Line Biotechnologies currently at $8.20. Couple of few top 15 stocks of the Investors Business Daily 50 that we pulled out here, anywhere from BITA all the way through ULTA. So take a look at these specific securities as the market opens this Monday morning in New York. And again, when these 15 stocks are mentioned in Investors Business Daily, you want to keep an eye on the inflection on how many people certainly read the publication and if it has an effect on the particular security, and that's something to at minimum is to put on your list of stocks that you watch perhaps. And that's something that you want to keep an eye on. Also, let's move ahead here. GPS, Gap, higher in pre-market. Jefferies upgrades Gap Incorporated to buy best idea for 2015. EMP. So Gap currently at $42.48. EMP. Some per share soar in success of a head-to-head phase 3 antibiotic study, and they're higher in pre-market at EMP. We can take a look at EMP this morning. Bear with me, waiting for some data as we're waiting for that. ADXS submits investigational new drug application to FDA for ADXS. HER2. Again, waiting on some charts, having a bit of a technical slowdown here. CERS reports EU phase 3 clinical trial of Intercept. Red blood cells met primary endpoint. CERS currently at $6.79, higher by more than 4% this morning. OAS and SWN. OAS downgrade to neutral at Susquehanna. That's currently at $16.02, lower by 5.8% in pre-market. That's OAS and SWN. And Southwest Energy currently at $26.97. Again, with that downgrade in Susquehanna. On Bloomberg, real M&A, retail LBO picks for 2015. We have a few stocks that are being mentioned for M&A, and we've posted those up there as well. Anything from PIR, BBBY, DKS, GME, and that's something that we will keep an eye on throughout the day. BCLI announces positive results from final analysis of Phase 2A ALS study. Currently, the stock BCLI is at $6.33 this morning, lower by 16%. This morning. Again, they do announce positive results, but stock is lower this morning. And also, we have KO, so certainly Coca-Cola was upgraded at Morgan Stanley, currently at $42.76, up by about 1.5%. this morning. Barron's indicating best income ideas for 2015 include bonds, dividend stocks, real estate investment trust, master limited partnerships, preferred stocks, closed-end funds, and business development companies. So that's something we like to pick those out on stories from publications such as Barron's. These are some of the top upgrades that we've researched from this overnight into this morning, and for you to take a look at. And the way we've set this up is the stock followed by the firm that's upgrading or downgrading these particular stocks. Also, so we can take a look at a few of these. For example, GPS. GPS higher by 1.62% at $42.53 currently. You want to take a look at the firm that's upgrading or downgrading the particular security, and really put that on your list. That's the so the firm is going out there, they're upgrading, increasing a particular price target, perhaps, and that's something that to keep an eye on. Also, just getting an upgrade this morning on MEOH. Upgraded at Scotia, MEOH just coming through right now, and that's currently at $45.33, lower by about 0.4%. We have some downgrades as well. Again, typically there's a really interesting dynamic where it's perhaps not an immediate response to the upgrade or downgrade, but it's really the longer-term effect on the particular security. Maybe if you're a swing trader in a particular in a sector, perhaps that's something that will impact an upgrade or a downgrade. Will impact that. Also, let's take a few more that are being stocks that are downgraded as well. ALXN downgraded at Morgan Stanley to equal weight. ALXN currently at $181.77. GoGo lower this morning. GoGo in-flight internet is intentionally issuing fake SSL security. So certainly a possible inflection on internet security there. Currently at $16.21, lower by 2.7%. We talked about autos as well. Chrysler, December auto sales higher by 20% versus the 23% expected. And the WATT signs collaboration agreement with Foxconn for wire-free charging. Stock is currently at $12 at higher by 5.45%. So, folks, before we finish the show, let's have a quick review of where we are in the markets. S&P futures are lower by 10.5 at 2035.75. We have crude oil lower by $1.90 at $50.79. So, folks, thank you for listening. We certainly have an interesting beginning to 2015 trading. We wish you a great day and good hunting. Thank you for listening to Unusual Activity, powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Romanides. Thank you and have a great day.